There was a time in the Philippines when people were forced to work for the colonial government without having a real choice. During Spanish rule, a system called Polo y Servicio was enforced. It required Filipino men, usually between the ages of 16 and 60, to give mandatory labor each year. At first, that meant around 40 days of work. Later, it was reduced, but it was still compulsory. The men forced into this labor were called palest. They were sent to build roads, bridges, churches, government buildings, shipyards, even military facilities. And while some sources describe it as public service, for many Filipinos, it felt like forced labor because the work was not freely chosen, and the people who suffered most from it were usually the poor. Some men could avoid Polo y Servicio, but only if they could pay an exemption fee called the falia, which meant the wealthy had a way out, and the poor did not. So the burden fell on ordinary Filipino families. Fathers were taken from their homes, fields were left unattended, harvests were delayed, income was lost, and in dangerous projects, some men became sick, were injured, or never returned at all. That is why Polo y Servicio was never just about labor. It was part of a wider colonial system that took time, strength, and livelihood from the people themselves, and it helped build the very structures that colonial rule depended on: roads, churches, ships, government works, all built through the labor of people who had little power to refuse. Over time, the system created anger, not only because the work was hard, but because it showed who had privilege and who was expected to sacrifice. Some resisted, some fled, and some revolted. In Samar, the Sumaroy revolt began, in part because men were being sent far from home to work in the shipyards of Cavite. That is how deeply hated the system had become. So, when we look at old churches, roads, and colonial structures in the Philippines, we should remember they were not built by empire alone. They were built by Filipino hands, under a system that demanded labor but gave little choice. Hidden Philippine Files. Follow for more untold stories of the Philippines.